When it comes to creating the pricing graphs in the Focus First software, the main one we're going to focus on is the pricing scattergram. Now to open this area here, we see all the data we loaded in. All you have to do is click this pricing button. If you find yourself on the real estate review or the patterns, all you have to do is click the pricing button here in the ribbon. It will bring you to this data sheet. Now this data sheet has a lot of awesome controls. You can change things in the data sheet itself. You can go ahead and sort by the information here, or even sort by the included or selected properties. You can also use the buttons up here in the ribbon to change some of the data or selections here in the sheet. So let's walk through a couple of those before we get into actually making a new scattergram. Now to select the boxes on the side here, I can either right click my selection, number at a time or one at a time, or I can select the boxes and click the select properties option up here. Now one note to just keep in mind is I can either select this box that I want selected, click select property, and this would be adding a text box in this case to the scattergram property, or I can unselect by clicking that button. However, if I click on the address here, it's going to check all three of these boxes to add the text box, the price line, and the scattergram. If I unselect it, it removes all three. So just be wary of that if you're trying to add a property but didn't want a text box necessarily added to that automatically. Now, you might think this is a lot of data. It's kind of like, making me zone out. Well, you can go ahead and click this button here just to show only the selected properties. You can click plus here on the bottom to zoom in and see this much clearer. And you can have a little bit more focused kind of understanding. But if you want to see the rest again, all you have to do is click show all properties so you can see which ones maybe you wanted to go back and look at and select. The other option we have here as far as the data sheet and data goes is the ability to add a user property. Now this allows you to add a property maybe of a for sale by owner you saw, another house that is coming soon that maybe was pitched at your meeting, other homes that you see that are under contract, withdrawn, expired that weren't for some reason in your MLS search. Or in many cases, we like adding the subject property and then putting this where the seller had previously bought their house at, so they can see how much value they've actually accrued. It's really one of the good keys to helping people understand the equity they have in the house and really set them in the right mind space. All I have to do to add that is click this add user button again up here in the ribbon. Type in here, let's go ahead and say 1234 address. Add a subject property, click OK, and what you'll see here is that there's now a new property on the sheet here, and it's automatically selected for all the different options. Go ahead and just deselect that because I'm only going to show you guys in this video the important scattergram. And then we can type in here whatever information we need to. So let's say this was 3,000 finished square feet and total square feet of, let's say, 3,700. And the buyer previously had bought this, or the seller, sorry, had previously bought this for 600,000. And I can add more information in, but for now I'm just going to add that information in. So we have that, and now we've added it to the data sheet. Now you'll notice on the bottom here, we have a little tab that says PRCgram. Now this is your scattergram. Now if I go here, you'll see that there we have the homes that sold and the market value trend line. This is the one that's created automatically for you. Just like in patterns, you can navigate between the data sheet and the graphs that you've made here using the tabs. But in this case, we only have the basic one. We have to make a new one if we want to add this new property to it. And the way we create new scattergrams and change some of the parameters around them is by using this Create Graph Options button. Now this Create Graph Options button has a couple of choices in it. For example, I'm going to focus on this left side here of creating the scattergram. I can clear the data, which would just clear everything. I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to show this to you. I can click Select Data, which allows us to select either by date, year built, list price, or we can include other property types, for example, those for sale or withdrawn. So I'm going to click for sale just to show you what this looks like. If I click Select, what you'll notice now on the sheet automatically behind is two new properties added to the selection. For this one's under contract and for sale. So now we have a subject property under contract and for sale, and we want to add all of these to the scattergram. Now that is not done automatically. To be able to do this one, we have to create graph here. Choose our option how we want for the x-axis. I'm not going to change this in the current setting. Make sure we have this fair market value line turned on, and then what things we want added to the text box. Click Create Graph, and now we have the option of replacing the old graph or keeping both. I'm going to keep both to show you the difference between the two. In many cases, it's good to keep both and just kind of have the different options to move between. But if you know that you're not going to use the old one, go ahead and replace it. Okay, so now we have a new scattergram. You can see here the original down here is still navigating using the tabs. And now this new one, we can see the subject property, in this case is the old price of when they purchased it. So you can see how much value they've had an increase, and you can see what's for sale and what's under contract down here. Now you might be looking at this and saying these dots are way below the line. Obviously this one is because it was bought a while ago. This would be a good idea then to add text boxes to these and take a look at these. So obviously these are the two active ones. This one here, I'm just hovering my mouse over it, and you can see it says that it's 2514, and that's for the finished square feet. So I'm going to go back to the data sheet, and I can do this one of two ways. I click the tab here at the bottom, or I can click the pricing button, and that'll bring me back to the data sheet. Now, if I went with the finished square feet here, 2514, I'm going to hit select properties. By turning this on, I'm going to right click on this one. And then these two, you can see here, this guy and this guy are my active ones. I'm going to click select property to make sure I add these. Again, you can see it adds to all three, but in this case, I just wanted to make sure you understood that you can use both. I'm going to create another graph. And I'm going to keep both again. And now you'll see we have the text boxes added here on the graph. So now I'm going to click on the text box not once, but twice, so you see these white squares, which allows us to move these now. And it will have a line up here that will allow us to stay connected to the dot itself, but allow us to move it where they're not quite stacked on top of each other like they just were. Okay, so just like that, we have the text boxes where we can now kind of type in here to identify what's going on. Now, this is where you would go back to the data sheet, look at some different features. For example, in this case, if I look at these ones that are under contract and for sale, you can see that this one was built in 2005, this one's built in 1996. We can look at the MLS number, and we can open up our MLS and look at those and see what could be causing the value to be that much lower than a lot of these other ones that sold. Now, just for an example, this one here happens to be part of the patio homes. Oops. As is this one that's under contract. So I'm just going to type in this text box here that these are both patio homes. That way I understand, okay, these are not necessarily the same as the other homes in this search. Now you could remove these from the graph, or you could keep them on because in many cases, your sellers are probably looking at Zillow or some online source and they're seeing these homes for sale at this low price in their neighborhood and they might be feeling a little bit wary of them. So because of that, it's good to have them on there to be able to explain that question, explain that fear to them. That being said, we now have a great pricing scattergram that has some information on it, and you're ready to talk to your customer and help them really understand a rough estimate value of what their home is. The way we do this, we have them draw a line essentially up along the square footage here to this here and asking them, what does the graph say your home is probably about worth? And they might say, okay, this is probably, I don't know, $730,000. And you would say, yes, the graph does show that. But you can see there's some dots above the line. There's some that are hovering just below the line. And what determines that for these homes here, you would go take a look at those and probably add text boxes for those ones that are close to square footage. Might be a finished basement or a really good fenced yard or things like that. And you would start asking yourself, does your home share those same features? Let's say it does, and maybe it has a nice yard but doesn't have a fully finished basement, it's a half finished basement. And so you're going to have the value in this probably be right around $750,000. Now that would be great, and that's where really pricing stops. However, this is where the competitive aspect comes in, and now we're able to go ahead and look at positioning using the $750,000 and looking at the competition from a buyer's eyes perspective in our next step. Well, the tutorials are going to continue on with that next step and talking about the competition. I do want to make sure I take a quick note here to say, look at the class included with your subscription. The new CMA Mastery class really walks through all of this to understand how to know if a scattergram is good or if you need to make changes on it, and really helps you understand the ranges when it comes to pricing as well as the competitive range when it comes to positioning. It goes into a lot of detail and shows a lot of great examples that you can get tons of great takeaways from, and I think can really help you elevate your pricing game. So make sure you check that. Again, that's in your account area, and it's the new CMA Mastery class.